I want to go over again the difference between the great circle and the small circles that come out. We said so. Our lifeline is like the ray of infinite light that comes into the void. Every person's history is that line that they bring in. And in general, the whole history of the entire world is something called primordial man's line. He's also a line. But he's like an all-encompassing. So, as we go through life, we said there are moments, and we call them like buttons, because of how the Torah describes the menorah, that in each place on the main candle, the main foot, the one from which everything comes out, on both sides. So the point of contact is called a button, kafto. So that's a direct translation. Really, what does it mean? It means that there is, kafto comes from the word lichpot. It's to submit something.
Submit?
Like hachna, same idea. Lichpot really is to tie something together so that it doesn't move. Because in the place where the two candles come out, on either side, you have to have something stronger. They have to be like tied to the center axis so that they don't fall off. So that place, those places in life are really, they're moments in which we're to our lives. So we gave the parable last week, the image of tunneling through a mountain. And every so often, you have to put in a ring of cement. Moments. That circle is the circle of faith, as opposed to the line which is confidence. Right? And we said that the difference between the great circle and the little circles that come out at each one of these buttons, at each one of these points, these sensitive points, we'll call them. Like there's more sensitivity there. So these circles, the difference between them and the great circle that created the void is that the great circle feels that everything is good the way it is. Right? And each one of these circles that comes out is a feeling that eventually it'll be good.
Small circle is eventually it will be good.
Right. It'll work out. It's not, we said it's not confidence, not passive confidence. Passive confidence says, I imagine how it will be good, and so therefore it will be good. I fill myself with good thoughts about how I want things to resolve. But in faith, I don't have a picture of how it's going to resolve. I just say at some point it's going to resolve. Okay? So each one of these moments is like usually a moment of a test, of a nisayon. And the nisayon requires you to sort of put your confidence on hold and to stand the test. But those tests themselves, they're what make your life possible. They're like these rings of cement that you line the tunnel you're building with. So you have to, from time to time, line it with strong cement to keep going further. Okay. So that we talked about last week. Then we added another parable that's brought in Chassidus. And this is the parable of how the person, the very anatomy of our bodies, mimics the same idea. That the great circle is the mind, the head, the skull, which is round. And then a line projects out of it. What's the line that projects out of it? The spinal column. And as the spinal column descends, at some point it begins to eject circles. What are those circles?
Intestines?
No, those we said those are the ribs.
Ribs.
We said there's 12 ribs altogether. 5 of which are called false ribs, and 7 of which are called true ribs. But they're a much better image even than the menorah, because in the menorah it just goes out a little bit, each one of the candles. But in the human anatomy, the rib is really almost a full circle. Some of them are really a full circle. The first 5, they're really a first circle. They connect to the bone here. And then some of them, they remain open. The 7 that are real, they don't connect. Just remain open. But they're also full circle. So what's going on? What is that doing? It's creating the cavity in which my vital organs live. So as much as it seems to me that at every test that I have to, for the moment, put on hold my advance and put on hold my plans, and I have to engage in faith. So it may seem to me that what a waste of time, but that faith itself, those circles that are created in life, they're what hold everything together as you continue to push forward. And so you have to have them once in a while. They're actually the source of life.
What, the ribs? What?
The ribs are just a parable. But just as the ribs contain the vital organs, the heart and the lungs, in the same way, these circles of faith that come out once in a while in the line of my life, in the story of my life, they're actually the source of life.
It's like connected to the mimer about Sheena Esrei and the 18.
Right.
Hmm.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now I'm going to read something that isn't in yours, because I didn't put it in. The second type of circle is it, meaning the small circles that are ejected from time to time from the ray of confidence. They follow the mystery related in Epistle 27 in the Tanya regarding the passing of the tzaddik. Because when a tzaddik, it says there, when a tzaddik departs the world, he leaves behind his life, it says. He leaves his life. Shavik chaim lechol chai. He leaves life for everybody who was connected to him. What do you mean he leaves life for everybody who was connected to him? Because when the tzaddik was alive, the tzaddik is a symbol of the column. In fact, he's called, in the Zohar, the tzaddik is likened to a column that spans from heavens to earth. It's called the Amuda de Emtsaita de Achid Bishmaya Uve'ara. The middle column that spans all the way from the heavens, all the way from the high spirituality down to the lowest mundane. So he's the column. And normally in his life, why do we have tzaddikim in the world? Because you have to cling to something. They give you confidence. The purpose of a tzaddik is to keep you going, because he's always going. He's always moving forward. So what happens when he departs?
You go to his grave.
So he's no longer there. So you can't get any more from his confidence. So it says that what he leaves over now is the ultimate circle. That's the source of life that he gives over after he passes away. And so when you go, for instance, you said correctly, when you go to a tzaddik's grave,
Right.
what you're getting is his faith now, his faith in his life. In that epistle, in the Tanya, he explains that the real life of the tzaddik is his faith. It's true by every person. But by a tzaddik it says, "Tzaddik be'emunato yichya." That's what we learn.
So
On the other hand, it seemed to us that this should be hard to understand, because we said that tzaddik is confidence. So what's he got to do with faith? So he says no. Just as the confidence comes down, it descends into the world. He lives his life. When he passes away, he leaves his life force behind him. It's no longer in the sense of confidence, it's in the sense of faith.
So we should really measure our progress in life by our faith, not by our kav progress.
Why?
Because
both
I
are
could
needed.
look like I'm progressing, but my faith could crumble in an instant.
No.
Or I
you're-
could be progressing super slow, but I have a lot of faith.
Again, the faith is as much as is needed to
Right.
to,
But
to
you- right. But
to
remember we
strengthen
said you
the-
keep
the
burrowing
mind.
and you don't realize things are crumbling behind you. So it might look like accomplishment, but you
Good,
haven't built
you'll
any
have
faith.
to stop.
Right. So I'm saying,
You'll have to stop.
wouldn't we
Meaning
say?
you'll see it crumbling. What you mean by saying I see that my burrow is my tunnel is crumbling means that I don't have
I
enough
need
faith
faith.
to hold it up.
Right.
So it's like going to say you can keep going without faith, and then eventually you have to restart.
Right. No, but because you're saying your true life is your faith. That's what I'm saying.
The,
It's not what
the
we want.
life of the tzaddik is really his faith.
And everyone's. You're saying, correct?
Everybody's a little bit of a tzaddik, yeah. But in the tzaddik, that's his main thing. Like when he's alive, you don't see that. When he's alive, what you see is a person who's constantly moving forward.
Right, but I guess remember last time you said, oh, you make a list of 10 things, you finish 50% or 20%, whatever. Wouldn't I rather say at the end of a day, maybe I only did 10%, but wow, my trust in Hashem is like so strong today. Wouldn't that be more accomplishing than I did 80% of my list? But maybe I'm thinking I'm in control. Like, meaning I feel that I ought to measure my progress by my faith, not by what I checked off my
But
list.
progress isn't faith. Progress is the confidence.
Meaning my true life, that's what I'm saying. Like, wouldn't we measure our true life by our faith?
True life is, again, you mean the life that's eternal, that's not connected to this world. It's above space and time.
Okay,
We didn't come into the world to live above space and time.
that's where
So-
faith is.
There's two types of faith, we said.
Okay.
There's the faith of the great circle. That's faith that's above time and space. And so you don't need to do anything because right now everything is fine. And then you have the little circles, which are a lower form of faith, and it's more connected to progress. So that type of faith is a type of faith that holds together my progress. But in the end, I'm measuring everything by my progress. I'm not measuring it by my
But
faith.
it might not be commensurate, because for me to take one small step might require thousands of circles of faith, and for someone else
Instead of
to
one.
take 20 steps, they need
Wonderful.
one circle.
Wonderful.
That's what I'm saying, is I have to measure it by how solid my faith is, not by how far I've
The
walked.
circles don't measure. That's the whole point. The measuring rod is only the straight line. There's no aspect of it. On the contrary, the circle is the aspect that brings it all together. It doesn't measure progress. It sort of says, as much as I've done today, this is all, I give it all back to Hashem.
Mhm.
It's almost like the opposite of progress.
Mhm.
But a lot of times that's what we need in order to keep going, because otherwise it crumbles. Meaning, another way of saying it is that if my tunnel is crumbling, if my life is crumbling, it's because I attribute too much of the progress to myself.
Mhm.
And I don't have enough faith that this is Hashem doing it.
Mhm.
Excuse me, you said when we go to the great tzaddik, we get
The faith, okay,
His
his
faith?
faith. That's what he leaves behind him. During his life, you didn't see his faith. Because what did you see?
Unless you know.
Even if you knew him, even if people really knew him, what you saw was constantly moving forward. And that's what he got everybody else to do. He pushes people to move forward.
You really see yourself when you see a tzaddik.
What do you
When
mean?
You see them.
No, that's what he wants from me. He keeps telling me, advance. Don't stay in one place. The real tzaddik is always tying the heavens with the earth. So he's always saying, push more and do more. So when he's alive, it doesn't seem to me like he has faith even. Because I don't even see
Doesn't
it.
like he needs faith. That's what it is.
Doesn't need it. It's not clear where he's fully 100% committed to moving forward. It's like he never stops. He never stops to coat his tunnel with cement. It doesn't seem that way. Rather, what does he do? He pushes forward. So if somebody says to him, I have a problem, the Rebbe is the ultimate example of this. What does he say? Take on another mitzvah.
Yeah.
Do something more. That for him is how to solve the problem. That's what it looks like. But what you don't see is that really his life the whole time was his faith, because he simply can't see it, because he's so involved and he's so committed to moving forward that you don't see the circles forming around him wherever he goes. You just don't see it. But when he passes away, so then the confidence is gone. It seems the confidence is because he's no longer has a lifeline. He's not progressing further into the world. He stays where he was. But then because he now is no longer engaged in progress, what you see, says the Alter Rebbe, is you see his faith, which was his real life all along. החיים האמיתיים של הצדיק הם אמונה. That's how he says it.
Should be more than that. Because
He says three
sometimes
things
I'm
there.
still giving us
He says
confidence.
3 things there, but
Like Moshe, I mean, with Torah, somehow there's confidence involved too.
so let's see what this means. So to really get into this now, this is like a whole social cultural question now. If we've defined so far that the line is the confidence and the circle is the faith, so how would it work with masculine and feminine? So it's not too hard to imagine, again, that the line is the masculine and the circle is the feminine. And it's not so hard to figure out. So what's happening every time in each of our lives? We have these moments where progress becomes impossible and we have to go back to faith. So what is that moment? That's a moment of going from being relatively masculine to being relatively feminine. There's a deep idea here. That the masculine tends to want progress. But it always inevitably reaches a point of fracture, a break. There's a barrier somewhere. And it comes crashing on the shore and it's broken. Because he can't move anymore. He can't move forward anymore.
Is that level of incompetence?
So what do you do in that moment? You have to resort back to faith. Why does faith hold it together? Why is faith able to hold that moment in which the confidence is broken? Or confidence can't, it's these sensitive moments that you can't get through just with confidence.
Because it's direct to Hashem.
Well, it's a circle, so.
Hmm? So we hinted at it before because
Confidence is in me.
the feminine has faith because it's weaker.
It
If
it
you're
being
strong,
the woman or
I'm not calling it a woman or a
Feminine
man.
energy.
It's feminine energy. The feminine energy is weaker. That's what you've mentioned the Yom Yom from
Yes.
today.
It's like the flax that bends in the wind. That idea.
Maybe.
Okay.
It's weaker in the sense that it's more prone to realizing that it doesn't have all the strength in the world.
We say it's softer. Is that a better word?
Sure, it's awful.
Okay.
well, masculine is weak too. Then that's why it
It's used to
fractures.
being broken. That's really the
So,
thing.
so if you say the masculine
It's
always
secular, it's not
fractures,
linear. I mean, it's
then
Sorry?
if you say masculine fractures, then it's weak also.
It's weaker in
So
a different
strong that it
sense.
breaks.
We'll say in a moment. That's what you
somehow more
meant.
vulnerable.
That's what you meant with the rod in the wind. That a rod that's soft,
Right.
the line has to become soft. Not, it shouldn't become circular. It just has to become softer than it was.
Kamish.
More flexible. That's what the sages say, that's the difference between an oak tree and not an oak tree, it's a erez, which is I don't know how you say erez. Cedar. It's like a cedar and a grass in the wind. That the cedar, as strong and great and big as it is, in the end, a strong wind can come and topple it over. But the grass, no matter how strong the wind is, it will never uproot it because it bends easily. So, what adds the strength to this line? These moments of adding the circular, this more curved aspect to it, so that it becomes flexible. So at these junctures, that we're calling them buttons because of the menorah, so at these junctures, you're adding more flexibility into the line. But amazingly, the flexibility is not if it was just being flexible in the line itself, it would say, well, if it didn't work this way, it'll work that way. Like, I'll just change my approach.
That's very masculine.
You can, but that's very masculine. Here it's saying that sometimes, no, you just can't keep going forward. That's it. It's over. From here, you can't continue. It's not until you spend some time strengthening the whole structure. It's not to change the approach. It's still the same approach. You don't need to change it. You just have to be full of faith that you won't break, that it'll work out. I don't know when, but it'll work out.
Can you do the opposite?
I even don't know how it will work out. So this you read so many times that there is a man. Usually now you have to say like men and women, because usually in history this is how we've seen it. There's this man who is pursuing some direction in his business or whatever, and then it seems to be falling apart. He loses his money, he's this, he's that. Who holds him together, surprisingly? His wife. How come she can hold him together when he can't tolerate it? Like for him, it's every moment is like mamish death. Like he can't take it. And she keeps giving him faith, not confidence, but she keeps giving him faith that it'll work out eventually. Eventually, I don't know how, I don't know when. And then the problem is that then the man wants his wife to tell him, well, how is it going to work out? But that's not faith, that's confidence. That's passive confidence. To picture how it's going to work out, that's already passive confidence. But what you need in these moments is not to try to figure out how this is going to work. That's not what the faith is giving you. The faith is giving you the emunah that this is going to work out somehow. I don't know how. And Dafka, the woman is more used to being able to saying that, to feeling that.
And then he works out and he gives the credit.
I always knew that was going to happen. So he on his party is a little bit right, because for him it's like he keeps doing passive confidence, like trying to figure out a workout like this, like this, like this. He's trying other approaches to see which one will work. But her general direction is just to hold on. It doesn't really matter how it's going to work out. The point is that faith is the ability to hold on. Holding on itself. Again, when you're building this ring inside your tunnel, you're not thinking about how you're going to move forward again. You're just thinking about standing here and being able to hold on to what you have here. Okay, so now I said this is a cultural question. It raises a big cultural question. Because this all works very well if the woman is connected to femininity. Well, what if you train women to work with confidence? What if women become businessmen also?
They are. So what
I
is
mean, train them. Some
Yeah.
girls would be born with that.
So if somebody
No.
says it's just cultural, there's no difference between men and women. If you teach somebody to be an entrepreneur, you teach them to be a leader, you teach them to push forward, if you teach them to lead, all these things. So women can also do the same thing. There's no difference. So if it's just cultural, the current difference between men and women, so what will happen in 100 years? Nobody will remember how to do faith. Because
Why?
you
There
want
are
to,
men who are they have that aspect
What
very
kind of
well.
single person
Who's gonna
be
teach it
doing
to you?
both?
You mean he's going to teach because he doesn't have it naturally? But there are men who are
No,
born
I'm saying if
naturally-
it's culturally that way, meaning that we've been conditioned
Oh, okay.
the men to identify with the line and the women to identify with the circle,
Mhm.
and it's just a cultural thing. So what do we do in 100 years? Nobody's going to remember what faith is.
But a lot of men today are turning more to that feminine energy of faith, I think.
How? Where do you see
I
that?
see it
I
all
see
over.
it.
Men
Yeah?
are
Of course
very
they
feminine.
are.
You see them full of faith.
Yeah, they have a lot of faith.
They have
A lot of femininity.
A lot of child
and they don't
care.
do anything.
Doing a lot of
Sorry.
Doing a lot of
Yeah,
child care.
I think so.
Men-
Of
men
our
are doing more
generation, the same way the
child care.
women are
They're
fighting.
doing what?
More
Men
child
are
care.
like
A lot.
More childcare.
It's really nice.
What did she say? What did you
It's
say?
different.
Nothing out loud.
Oh, I said that I see more and more this next generation of the men doing much more child care and equally.
So you think it's just
I
cultural?
think we're shifting in opposite
It can't be. You
directions in a
described
weird
it as a
way.
body. You said there's a skull and the spine.
I don't know, maybe, but
So every human being has to be able to have both.
so you have both. The question is whether it's just cultural or whether it's something ingrained. Is
Well,
it
you look
something-
at the tzaddik and you see that you can be both in their highest form, so that's how you know it's okay.
No, but we have to take hint
Like,
from our
A
bodies.
tzaddik
We don't
is
have the
totally
same body.
masculine and totally feminine, and it's perfect.
Why
Why
feminine?
are
He's
they
only
born a
masculine.
man or a
No,
woman?
the amount
He's
of
only
faith that
masculine.
tzaddik has.
No, you don't see it when he's
Who cares
alive.
if you don't see it? That's how great it. Wait, Rabbi Ganot, we
That's
said we
what we
don't
just
see
said.
it because it's so natural.
No, not because it's natural.
I thought it's so
because
intense.
he's busy moving forward all the time, so you
But
don't
his
see
faith
it.
is so part of him. You don't need to watch him
No,
cement
but
in his
again, but
tunnel.
you don't see it. You don't see his feminine side at all.
But it's so inbuilt.
One tzaddik in the end.
So,
It's not the whole
so,
world.
so what you're saying is that in 100 years, I could have a woman who's a tzaddik.
I don't know.
So,
Maybe
that's
maybe
what
not.
Before, why not?
Wait, actually, this is maybe an odd question, but like, let's say the Rebbe, I mean, really his masculinity and femininity was, so to speak, complete. So in his marriage, did the Rebbetzin not play the role that the average woman would play in a marriage as far as faith?
No, she very much did.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
she
saying. Even
idealized
more than
Okay,
you
Yeah.
she
did.
didn't have it.
Because again, for him,
the Rebbe
the
have it?
revealed aspect of his life is entirely confidence.
But wouldn't
doesn't
he have been
reveal.
that way without a Rebbetzin, or no? Because a tzaddik, I seems complete.
No,
to
the
me.
Rebbe went home to
Maybe.
his wife.
Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he can't be that way even with
Okay.
without a wife.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that this presents a really big question
Mhm.
of whether we might be, if we teach everybody to be more confident, just confident, to pursue goals, so then do we give up on faith?
Are you regretting that you told us confidence?
Come on, you're
No,
teaching
I-
it both. You are
No, but
teaching
it's
faith
true.
and confidence equally.
No, but
No, you
no,
can't teach
we
it
are not. I
well.
agree. I feel like we got a big dose of the confidence stuff, and my faith is not commensurate to my
Well, you
confidence.
weren't here when he was teaching faith.
Faith? Really?
He
Okay.
teaches faith as
I
much
thought
as
faith
he
and
teaches.
confidence is one
First
subject.
13 classes, I think,
Exactly.
we've just on faith.
He's been,
Okay,
yeah.
fine. Yeah, but we
We've
did
been
it the
going
first
back
time
and
also.
forth, back and forth.
But he's taught it about 5
I know,
times.
I know,
That's
I
how
know.
much we need it.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So what's the answer?
so I'm bringing it up as a question.
Okay.
I think you need to be really wise. Always really need to be wise. We also have to take hint from our bodies. There are men and there are women. You cannot close your eyes to this.
So one of the things that I
Yeah.
thought of when I was thinking about this question was that the number 2 at Facebook is a woman. I don't remember what her name is, and she wrote a book called Lean In. Lean In.
Oh,
The what's her?
I don't remember.
Not B'nai
More than-
Brown.
She's the CEO of Facebook.
Yeah.
She's a
So-
Jewish woman.
Yeah, she's also Jewish. So anyway, so
Huh?
she's also Jewish.
I didn't say Elsa. I said
no, I said she's also Jewish. He's Jewish and she's also
She
Jewish.
lost her husband. That was her whole talk at Harvard.
She lost her husband.
Yeah, that was her
He
whole
passed
speech.
away
at-
from.
yeah, suddenly, like in a gym in a hotel.
In any case, so I was thinking about I didn't read it, but I sort of read a little synopsis of it, and she says that women manage in a different way than men. That's why she called it lean in. She said a man will like fall into it full force, but a woman slowly leans in. It's like this different idea. So I haven't read it. I don't know how much it fits with this idea here. In any case, it may be interesting.
Sorry.
So there's an incredible.
No, I have a question on the subject. Are we sort of saying that what God intended you to be, or let's say you're feminine or you're masculine, so that you're the Kav of the circle, really we should spend time nurturing the natural part of ourselves versus trying to balance ourselves? Like why, as a
No, you
woman,
need
I shouldn't
both.
really learn about the Kav
Why not?
because then I think I need to take it
No,
on.
you also have a kav.
You
The
do.
question is what the ikar is in the marriage. Which
But
which
I'm saying
which
when you're
side
not
am I
in a
more?
marriage, you should really be focusing on your natural state, or I mean, it's very confusing. Because if you try to become
I can
too
tell you.
balanced by
I
yourself,
can tell you from my own experience. When you're not married, it's very confusing.
Exactly. Great.
I was very confused for a long time.
Okay, fair enough.
That's as good as I can do.
No, it's like you're trying to do two roles. You really should just do
You
one.
can't. You can't
Right,
really do
exactly.
two roles.
Exactly. Okay.
In any case, so there's a story about this with the Rebbe, and just to see that there's no faith by the Rebbe had no faith. It's very interesting. What does it mean that he had no faith? So there's a lot of stories like this with the Rebbe, that he used to say something, and a miracle would happen. And then he'd come out and he'd say to one of whoever helped him in the secretariat, whichever secretary was helping him at the time, don't tell Groner. There's a very famous statement there. Don't tell Groner, Rabbi Groner, because he'll say that I did it. Meaning, what does he want? He wants faith. He wants to have faith that somehow I did it. And what do I say? What does the Rebbe say? Hashem did it. What are you talking about? So what did I do? I did what every person does. I didn't do anything special. You move forward. I told people to keep moving. That's all. There's no miracle here. There's nothing. If there was a miracle, Hashem did it. But I didn't do anything special. I didn't create a miracle. That for sure I didn't do. What did I do? I told people, here's how you solve this problem. You do A, B, C, D. But there was a really special. I don't know who the story is about, but I have a good reason to believe that if it didn't happen to Rabbi Groner, it could have happened to him also. There's people like him that this would have happened to. So it says that there were certain people who walked into the Rebbe whenever they wanted. They didn't have to make an appointment. They came, they knocked on the door, they came in. So one of these people, he came in, and he saw the Rebbe sitting there thinking. And the Rebbe said to him, the person that you came to see isn't here right now. Not here. So he went out, and what was his conclusion from this? That even the Rebbe sometimes takes a break, like he's not here.
Has faith at that time, maybe.
But what was the thing to take from that event? That even in his life, the tzaddik sometimes reaches a point that's like a button, that's like a fracture.
Mm-hmm.
And when that point arises, he has to go into faith. And so the person that you're looking for, what are you looking for? You're looking
one
for the
who's
guy who's
pushing.
going to tell you what to do. He's not here right now because I can't tell you what to do. But that doesn't mean that I'm not here. It just means, again, this is the main thing to learn about ourselves also,
Yeah.
that if I'm engaging in faith, it's not that I'm not here. It's not that I'm not still present. I'm just doing something else.
So the person wanted his confidence, and he was
Right.
stepping. Wow.
So he said, the Rebbe, I can only give you faith now. And for faith, I don't have to say anything. You can just look at me and you'll get faith.
I'm troubled by this because there's so many women that are out there being confident. So the
we're not
person they're
against
looking
confidence.
for-
Confidence in women.
We're not against being confident.
That's not what I mean. You're talking about men. He's not here. So the woman can say the same thing. The person you're looking for isn't here if you're looking for faith. I'm being confident. I'm working. I'm living. I'm doing my thing.
That's funny.
Why don't you ever talk about the other,
Because I don't have an example of a woman
Oh,
Rebbe.
come on.
Of a woman
We're all
Rebbe.
like
If you
that.
have if you have
But
an
that
example
usually
of a
looks
woman
negative.
Rebbe,
It's usually a bad
Oh,
picture.
Rebbe.
No, if a woman is like running around and not here, it's usually a bad picture.
Well,
what's
that's too bad. It's not.
No, I'm not
It's a
I'm
hint.
saying it could be an avoidant picture, like she's running away from what she
No, but we know that's not the way it is all the time.
so? There's one example I can think of a woman Rebbe. I was thinking of Dvorah, the prophetess.
Yeah.
So she,
Yeah. Miriam.
so Barak comes to her and says, "I'm going to go to war. Come with me." And she says, "No, you don't want me to come with you. Why? Because if you win, what will they say?
It was me.
That it was you. That it wasn't you. It was me.
Right.
And you don't want that."
Didn't they give it to Yael anyway?
Can in the end it can, but also how did she? You could say that what's the difference between the two? What was the difference between Yael and Dvorah? Where did Dvorah work?
Under a tree.
Under the tree. Under the palm tree.
I said,
Oh,
In
judge.
faith.
what was she doing? She was in the
Connected.
background while the war was going on, and she was getting faith in the sense of
Yeah.
the small circles that are being ejected at every moment. But where did Yael hit Sisera?
In the throat.
In the
head,
skull.
In the skull.
So what we need to say is Yael was much higher in terms of her faith. It wasn't the faith of the circles
about
that are coming out at every
Yehudit?
moment.
You heard it.
Okay? It was the faith of the great circle. That it's good at this moment, right now. Okay? Dvorah, what she could do was only give you faith that eventually it'll be good. But Yael was able to actually show how it was good right now, at this moment.
What's the difference between that and confidence?
Right.
It's
Exactly.
not confidence,
Oh, come on.
because they're not pursuing anything.
She didn't pursue the situation? It
No.
sounds like she did.
No,
She called
she
him
put him to sleep. She's not pursuing.
What
it.
about Yehudi who cut off the king's head?
So that's a different story altogether. I'm
Yeah.
talking about this story. So one of the interesting things that comes out of this story is that you have two women here. And one is working with the small circles that are coming out, that's Devorah. And the other one, Yael, she has this ability to go straight to the source. And the big difference between them is that when you go to the great circle, you see how it's good at this moment, right now at this moment. And it's not something that will eventually show up.
Okay.
Okay, now we have the same thing with another story, that we have two men who have very similar stories, and one of them is the great circle and one of them is the little circles. Who are these? The Rabbi Akiva and his teacher Nachum Ish Gamzah. So Rabbi Akiva, we know the story. What's the story? That he went somewhere and he took with him a donkey and a rooster and a candle. And he wanted to sleep in some small town. And he knocked on all the doors. Nobody would let him in. Nobody wanted to bring him in. They were probably afraid. And they didn't know who he was. Remember, back then, how could you know if this was Rabbi Akiva or somebody else? No way you could know. So they didn't want to let him in. So he said, what can I do? He went out into the field and he set up his little camp. And he turned the candle on, he lit it, and he learned by the candlelight. And then in the middle of the night, suddenly a lion comes and kills his donkey, and a cat comes and kills the rooster, and the wind comes and blows his candle out. So he doesn't know. He doesn't know what's going to happen. It doesn't say that he said anything. He was just at a loss. What's going on? But he has faith. And meaning he has faith means I don't know. He's not going to pursue a different direction. He stays where he is. This is what Hashem wants from me now. He wants me to be here, in the field, without light, without a rooster, without a donkey. The next morning, when the morning finally breaks, So he sees that during the night there was a Roman legion that went through the village that he wanted to sleep in. And they took the villagers captive, and they were all sold into slavery. So what does he say? He says, "Kol ma David Rachmana letav avid." Everything that Hashem does, he does for the best. But you can't see, you don't know how it's going to work out. That's little faith. That's the faith of the circles. Why? Because after a while, it turned out that it was good for him. It wasn't so good for the villagers, by the way, but it was good for him. So he's like Devorah in this case. He's like the circles that come out during the line progressing forward. But Nachum Ish Gamzo, he had a different way by him. What was his way? That everything that happened to him, right away, when it happened, he said, Gamzu l'tova, this also is good. And it didn't matter what he saw, whether it was good or not good. Everything was, this also is good. So that's why they called him Gamzu.
But he actually saw the good in that moment also.
Oh, so that's where the question is. If you actually see the good, then why do you need to call it faith?
Right.
So the faith here is to sense that reality is all good. No matter what, it's all good. That's what it means to have faith. If it's just to see with your two eyes, you don't need to call it faith.
Maybe he said it and then he saw it.
So now we see that these things do affect reality. So Rabbi Akiva's affected him because the next morning he saw that he had been saved. But it took time. It didn't take so long, but it took some time. What about Nachum Ish Gamzu? So that we have that story that he was sent to Rome to bring a present to the Caesar and to try to annul an edict against the Jews. And on his way, somebody sees that he's carrying this heavy box, and they understand that it's got all these precious gold and gems inside. So while he was asleep, they came into his room and they replaced the gold and gems with dirt
And later it turned out to be
from their garden. And he didn't know. He's very faithful. And he took the next day. He took the box to the emperor, and he gives it to him as a present. And they open it up, and inside they see a little bit of dirt. So the emperor becomes very angry. The Jews are laughing at me. So what ends up happening? So right away, what does Nachum say? This also is good. Reality as it is good. How do I know that it's good? Because that's the great circle around everything. To be able to feel that, if you're able to feel this too is good, then that's Nachum's level.
Is that
And it changed, and because he believed the reality itself is good, he's not saying eventually I'll
The
see
rest
how
of
it
that
was
story
good.
turned out to be good for some reason. The dirt.
Okay, so what
Yeah.
happened?
He said,
So Eliyahu comes into one of the ministers that are in court there, and he says to the emperor, don't be cross at them. They probably didn't mean to insult you. It can't be that this is regular dirt. It's known that their great forefather, his name was Abraham, and he won his wars with dirt. How do we know? Because it says in their book that Abraham said, "V'anochi afar ba'efel," that I'm dust and ashes. What was his dust? It says that maybe you take the dust and you throw it at your enemies. So they tried it. They took the dirt and they rode quickly to where the war at that time was. It took them, I guess, a few hours. They threw it at the enemies, and it turned into spears and into arrows and whatever, and it killed all their enemies. And the messenger comes back and says, yes, this is exactly what this is, some miraculous type of dirt. Why dirt? Why the whole symbol of dirt? Because it's trying to tell you that all of reality, even down to the very ground of it, is all good. I don't know if this is a good guess or not, but I would venture to guess that at that moment the Romans decided that the right system in Greece was the system that had 4 elements, not 3 elements. That the 4th element, dirt, is also something. Until then, they didn't know. They weren't sure because there were 2 systems in Greece. One system came from the east, from Mesopotamia, which had only 3 elements. And those were the early Greek philosophers. And the later Greek philosophers, they had 4 elements. We weren't sure which one is right. So they decided, I'm guessing that at that moment they decided, after this story happened, that the right system is the one that has 4 elements, because dirt is also something. Because you see that you can bring something out of it. Here we go. So Nahum turned reality into something good. Why? Because he believes that it's already good. So Eliyahu appearing and giving the advice that here, this dirt is really a secret weapon, and so on, that's the result of Nahum's faith. And it's immediate at that moment.
Would you say that faith is masculine and feminine?
Oh, so relative Rabbi Akiva's is feminine, and Nahum's is masculine, in faith itself. Just as we talked about in confidence, we have passive confidence and active confidence. So another thing we just learned is that the great circle is more, in a sense, it's more masculine. Yael is considered to be a masculine soul by the Arizal. Yael, who killed Sisra, who killed him by putting a yated, a tent pole, not a tent pole, a tent peg into his skull, and the skull again representing the great circle. She's a completely masculine soul in the Arizal. I don't remember who she's a reincarnation of, but she's completely masculine.
But she's still feminine.
She spoke about how the reason she used the pegs instead of the sword was because that was the feminine part. That
She's still a woman.
she took the pegs to put through his head instead of a sword, which is a man's war. But there was a
The
it was
peg
a woman's sharing.
The peg itself is already a very, very masculine
Yeah, it was
image.
something. I wish I could remember the whole thing.
If Freud would be analyzing this, he'd right away say the peg is the peg. Right?
Well, there's something about the home though. The bride is the tent of the woman makes the home.
Okay.
So you could say the peg is part of the woman's domain, and the sword is part of men's, which is woman.
If you get that from this class, it's a great thing. That in everything that you analyze, you'll see that there's a masculine and a feminine side. So as much as the tent is like a covering, it's like feminine. On the other hand, it has to have a pole and it has to have pegs, which are masculine.
So I think I feel she's totally that was a masculine. I mean, but like you said,
For
it
her
was
to
in
kill him
everything
was already masculine.
Huh?
For
Yeah,
her to kill him was already
exactly.
masculine. But
Yeah.
say it in a different way.
She did
That
it
when
in
a
a
man
feminine way,
kills,
maybe, or something.
that when a man kills, he doesn't take the head off.
Ah,
Where does he hit?
stabs the heart.
Okay, through the heart. Because this is the relatively more masculine side. It says that the most masculine type of killing is like what this is becoming a very gruesome class. Is what the tribe of Gad what they were very good at.
Skin them?
So they had a whole different way of killing people. It doesn't matter. So that was entirely to hit only the torso. It was all about the torso. Okay, in any case, it doesn't really
Is
matter.
it an emotional killing the head more?
You're talking about when they made them
No.
circumcise themselves?
What?
No.
In any case, so Nahum, he's got this. So how does he say it? He says it, Gam Zula Tova. But Rabbi Akiva says, Kol ma David Rachmana letav Avid. What's the big difference between the two? The biggest difference, right away you hear. Gam Zula Tova, and Kol ma David Rachmana letav Avid.
Nahum is talking about something specific.
Nahum talks in Hebrew,
Oh.
and Rabbi Akiva talks in Aramaic. That's the biggest difference between the two of them. The Nahum, first of all, Nahum was passed away before the temple was destroyed. He's entirely in the time of the temple. Rabbi Akiva saw the destruction of the temple. Second temple we're talking
Yes.
So Nahum-
Life lends to his reasoning.
Good,
I
good.
mean,
So Nahum, he's all about the confidence, relatively the masculine side of faith, which is like almost like confidence that the temple can give you. We'll see what that means as we go on. We'll see in a moment.
So wait a minute, so Maat HaMachpelah is the feminine side of the...
Why?
What? I
No, maybe.
associated that, sorry, okay.
I don't know. Maybe. Whereas Rabbi Akiva, he's already the feminine side of the faith. And he talks in Aramaic. He says this in Aramaic. You can't say the feminine side in Hebrew.
Why?
By the sages, it was very, very clear that this was the big difference. That Hebrew is the face, and Aramaic is like the backside of Hebrew. Just like Adam and Chava were like, one was facing this direction, the other one was back to back and facing the other direction. So when you say that Aramaic is the backside, it's like it's looking in the other direction. These languages are related to one another, but one is the front side, one is the back side. One is the masculine, one is the feminine.
Did you say that Nahum's faith, the masculine faith, was the big circle?
Right.
If the big circle to me sounds more feminine.
Why?
Because it's just so all-inclusive. It seems like the women have got more circular, all-inclusive faith. So I'm not quite getting the masculine faith.
It's because it sees it here and now, right now, at this moment.
Okay, so it's here and now. That's different.
Well,
It's not that it'll eventually be good.
Because
It is
it's in
good.
place,
Okay.
isn't the big circle in
Yeah,
place?
another way of saying it is
Do we recreate the big circle, or
no, the
it's there?
big circle is
Never.
always there.
So it's from top down.
It's always there. That's like saying that the world was somehow created before I came into it. It's always in the background. But another way of thinking about it is that the bigger the circle is, the more it seems to be straight. Think about the earth. You don't know that the earth is round.
When?
Because it's so big that it seems to you walking along a straight line, but you're not. So the greater the circle, the more encompassing it is, the more masculine it is. Again, this is to say that not every person's conception of the great circle is different. It depends on how much faith you have. For Nachum to be able to say about this event that now he's facing certain death because the emperor is going to kill him because he's brought him dirt instead of gems, you need a lot of faith there. So for him, this faith is able to capture even this predicament. For most of us, it might not be that way.
Is it just about how much we tap into it because it's there? Isn't that what it is? Is it a measure of how strongly we tap into it?
So again, it depends on who you are. It depends on who you are. That's why it
Some people
says.
are given more and given less, you're saying?
That's what the sages said. How did they decide to send Nachum and not somebody else? Because he
was
said
given
he's
more.
used to miracles.
That's not because he tapped into it more?
Good. What does it mean to be used to miracles?
Have faith.
To have a lot of faith. That's what he said. It's a miracle. That's why I said the Rebbe didn't want Groner to say the Rebbe did it, because then it would be like a miracle. Again, it's not that the Rebbe did it like he put the things together. He did something, I don't know how. The Rebbe looked at it and he said, of course I did something. I told somebody to move. Start moving, start doing something. So for him it's confidence, it's not faith.
Yeah, but he told people things that were never,
So I'm talking about
Very
how
miracle.
how he pushed people.
no, but.
That you push them to do. You don't come and you say you promise miracles. I'm not a miracle worker. That's not what I do.
So what about Moshe Rabbeinu when he davens while the Bnei Israel are fighting? When he keeps the hands up, it's the creating the small circle.
Okay, it's like Dvorah.
That's
It's the same idea. It's not the great circle yet.
no.
Sorry, you said a few times that you couldn't see faith in the Rebbe, and it's like so many of the Rebbe's letters are about trusting in Hashem. Like have faith, more bitachon, more faith, more trust. Trust in Hashem, things are good, like all of that. That's what he told us because we were like, what are we doing? Yeah, he also told people to act, but I feel like
I don't think it's he also told people to act. I think it's the opposite.
Fine.
He
very
first of
much-
all told people to act.
and then he.
And if there was nothing that you could do anymore, so then he said,
Okay.
so think good and it'll be good, which is still confidence. It's just passive confidence. But the Rebbe didn't teach people to have faith. He taught them to move. I mean, that's how you tell the difference between the
Well,
great
maybe
tzaddik of
I
the
know a different
generations.
Rebbe, because,
Why?
like you said, after the Rebbe's passing, we get more of his faith.
Nachon.
So maybe
After
that's
that,
why I
it
see
seems-
it like that.
Okay. After he passes away, it's much more that he's giving me faith than he's telling me what to do. He's also telling me what to do because a lot of things didn't change, but he's certainly not telling it to me the way that he did once, and it's not exactly just for me. Okay.
There's stories that you open the mimer and get his books into the page and he tells you.
Depends on your faith.
You see it in your eyes, I guess.
A lot of people don't have faith, and it doesn't work. Okay.
Well, I don't want the answer if I don't have faith. I won't open it because I think I don't have enough faith. I'm going to read something and maybe it's from him and maybe it's not. So it's like if I don't have enough faith,
The
then I
different-
don't want to bother because I don't know if I'm making sense.
Makes
It
sense.
So if you don't feel it's for you, you don't have to.
I don't know if it's not for me. It's just that I don't know if
You want to be open to it. You want to really.
I want to be totally bittul to whatever
Exactly.
it says, but if I don't think the computer's going to spit out from him, then I don't dare ask because I'm weak or maybe I'm whatever.
Well, it's like asking any tzaddik if you go to, you're supposed to
Right.
be prepared to do it.
Right. We don't want to ask if we're not
I'm not talking
prepared.
about asking it directly. I'm talking about a computer.
But anything, I think anything.
So let's see another example of this. So in the Rambam's 12th and 13th principles of faith, the 12th is that I have faith, ani ma'amin be'emunah shlema, in the coming of Mashiach. And what does he add there? That it's every day. Whatever day he comes, every day. Some people don't understand why do you have to add that? He didn't add that in the other ones. For instance, in the 13th, which is I have perfect faith in the resurrection of the dead, he doesn't add every day. In fact, he says something else. He says when it becomes, when the will arises in the Almighty, okay, as if some new will has to come to Hashem that he wants a resurrection. It's not his will right now. Be'et sheya'aleh ratzon me'et haboreh.
Just
Dependent
Mashiach.
on the 12th, maybe.
Maybe, but the
Yeah.
wording is completely different in terms of the expectation. Some people don't understand why this whole thing with every day by the Mashiach,
Because it's doing it.
because it's really coming from the Great Circle. It's a whole different level of faith. The level of faith of the resurrection of the dead is what you would call almost natural. It's almost natural. There's a question, it's a big question, of why isn't the resurrection of the dead mentioned anywhere in the Torah? Why is it not mentioned? If it's such a big principle of faith, why is it not mentioned?
You're saying.
Good, because it's almost natural.
Like it's
Says
not
Rabbi Akiva, who's a big expert in this. He says that some heretic came and asked him, "How can you believe in the resurrection of the death of the dead when it doesn't say so in Torah?" So what did he say? So he said, "I know it by logic. I don't need the Torah to tell me. Anything I know by logic, the Torah doesn't tell me." So he says, "What's the logic? Logic's simple. If those who were never alive were born, then those who were already alive won't be born again." Meaning, if something wasn't alive and then it became alive, you saw it alive.
Like what?
You,
Yeah.
like you. Before you were born,
Oh.
you weren't alive.
Oh,
So now that you're alive, you won't have life again. It's much easier. To be alive the first time, that's something from nothing.
Interesting.
That's a tremendous chiddush. That something that wasn't manifest as life suddenly came into this world as life. That's a tremendous novelty.
soul isn't considered life because we all believe.
Doesn't
it
matter.
came from
No, the
another
soul. We're talking about the soul.
But we all.
But not
believe.
every soul it turns into a body. Not every soul is
Right.
given a body. So if you are a soul who was given a body already once, you won't get it again. You have you've created a connection.
This is in the Gemara, it says?
Okay.
Oh, then it is in the Torah. Gemara is not Torah?
No, I said
They
it's
were
not in the
discussing
Chumash.
it.
Torah.
In their
Not in the
time.
written Torah.
Is it because?
So in a certain sense, this is almost natural. It's not completely natural, but it's like a natural argument that he makes. He says you don't need the Torah to tell you this because
somewhat
it's
logical.
because it's by logic it has to be.
So why do
It's
I
like a
have-
major and minor.
Why is it a principle of
It's like
faith?
a kal v'chomer, he says.
Why
What?
is it a principle of faith then?
Oh, so why is it a principle of faith? Because you still need faith
Right.
to get to it. Like, and the same thing with life. The real natural part of life is the confidence. Okay? That's you working, as it were, and doing things. Okay?
But that's once you're here already.
But even though you're working and doing and so on, you still have to have faith from time to time. These small circles that come out. So what are they doing? They're coming and saying that just keep on going. You'll eventually reach it. And have faith that eventually you'll reach your goal. Like Rabbi Akiva says, eventually it'll be good. But Mashiach, he says, is every day. So where is it coming from? It's coming from the great circle. That right now, Mashiach doesn't come by a succession of, it's not by tunneling forward inside your tunnel. You don't reach it by making another step, because truthfully, with Mashiach, if you try to reach it by steps, you're supposed to hit Zeno's paradox.
Hmm?
Zeno's paradox says that if from point A to point B, it's a finite distance, right? And every time an arrow that's shot from A to B, at every moment moves an infinitely small amount. So how long should it take it to get from point A to point B? Infinitely long, because every time it just moved infinitely little.
We'll never get there.
It'll never get there. So he's saying if you approach Mashiach like it's a succession of acts, then you'll never reach it. Because by definition, Mashiach is not the result of many, many, many acts changing the world, but rather one act saying one thing: the world is good. That's it. That's all it is.
But
That's what Mashiach means.
Now you've severed the relationship between the Kav and the big circle because suddenly they're not related.
No, but it's like sleep.
What do we
I
say?
don't have to push my Kav.
We never
My
said
Mashiach could
we
come.
never said that the big circle affects the kav.
We said they're connected. We
We-
said sometimes.
No, we said that
we lean on the big circle.
that the kav begins from the big
No,
circle,
but when we lean
but it
on the
doesn't
big
affect it
circle,
afterwards. It doesn't affect it.
I don't
What
lean
affects
back
it, what
on-
keeps it going, is the little
I never
circles.
lean on the big circle. for
You
support.
do. You have it in the background,
Okay.
in the sense that what? So what's the question? That it's good. That it's all good.
But then in all cases, I don't need to push my Kav for Mashiach to come.
No?
I don't do anything
Exactly.
for Mashiach
100%.
to come.
100%. That's
Right.
exactly the point.
So
Oh,
what's the
come
Kav
on.
for? Just for me to feel busy?
No, the kav is that you also have your thing to do in the world. It's not connected to
Not
Mashiach.
connected to Geula, not connected to.
You're not the Mashiach. You're not.
No,
Your work
it's
isn't
not
to be
inner
the
Geula.
Mashiach. Maybe you are, but
No, I'm saying it's not
But the
connected to
point
an
is-
inner redemption, redemption.
you have
So
your mission in life, and it doesn't change. It's
But our
not.
mission is connected to Mashiach. Okay.
So this is a big chiddush
Okay.
that it's not connected.
Interesting.
It's not connected. That's exactly the point. That's the mistake. What the Rambam is saying is, if we're understanding him correctly, then what he's saying is that Mashiach is not the sum total of many, many acts done together. In the Rebbe's thinking, you saw this towards the end, that at some point in 88, I think, or 89, he began to talk about if there were only 10 individuals who would really want Mashiach, Mashiach would come. But then in 91, he stopped saying that also. What did he say? If there was one individual, you don't need 10 even. There's just one individual who 100% believed Mashiach was coming, Mashiach would come.
Oh, come on.
It's like a wrong
And that's like Nachum Ish Gamzu. Because reality is already good. It's just a question of whether I have faith in it or not. The other option is the historical option that says that Mashiach is a conglomerate, or he's a sum total of a million different events. No, he's not. Because what is Mashiach? Mashiach is the revelation that reality is good. That's what it means.
So he's gonna come
Just
to the
because
mountain.
reality is good
Because
doesn't
it
mean
is
that we don't have
daily
work to do. We have tons of work to do.
Yeah.
It's just better to do the work in a reality that's good than in a reality that conceals its good. It's Mashiach in that sense is a change of consciousness.
That's why you
It's
need it
not
every
a
day.
what?
That's why you need
That's
it.
why it's every day and can be every day. It doesn't. There's nothing. It's not predicated on any kind of advance that we make.
So what is the whole story of Mashiach? What's the mind myself? What's it like? It seems dependent on something. Like Mashiach will come when
Like a critical mass.
enough people know about.
He
whatever.
will come anyway.
You just said it.
When enough people know about.
No. They
What?
need to know. That's it. They don't need to do. It's not about It's not about to say that our knowledge is not affected by our actions is not true, because many actions that we do affect our knowledge.
Why was the Rebbe so fierce about Mitzrayim?
He said it. And but the end, he said, and that's like how the Mashiachistim see it. And the end said the main Mivtza is just Mivtza Mashiach. That's it. They're not connected.
You don't think there's people who believe this? Come on.
I'm not clear about the meaning of the question.
What's the question?
What was the
That
question?
that the world is good, so we should get.
Oh, she's saying,
Mashiach.
isn't there one person already?
Why
that
is
does
that
it?
Mashiach here? So there isn't one person who really wants Mashiach? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
right,
saying?
exactly.
Oh,
There must
okay,
be
now I
one.
understand the question.
There must be one.
No.
I don't know.
Apparently not.
Come on, well, no.
Apparently nobody fully believes, because if I fully believe that reality was good like Nachum,
Oh, like not.
He will be here.
then reality would
Change.
act miraculous. It would act in a different way than the way I know how it
Like the
acts.
base Mikdash could not have been destroyed?
Okay, something
in
like that.
Rabbi
It's always
Nachum's
been
time?
there.
Yeah, but if Nahum, let's say, lived like that, but only his little life felt miraculous. Not everybody was feeling the benefits of Nahum's thoughts.
You said
But
it
they
because
didn't
it
have
wasn't.
to. He said
Then it
just
wasn't
time.
time
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
Now he's saying no. Now it is time. And if there was just one person who would see it this way, the point isn't so much one person, that person. I'm just showing more directions in what this idea is, that the 12th principle of faith in the Rambam is a principle that's related to the great circle, and the 13th is one that's related to the little circles that come out, small circles. They're just two different things.
So we're always doing two things we should be, it's
Sure.
two different things going on simultaneously, yes? Like she had asked about Mitzrayim, so to me that sounds more like Abbas Yisrael, and then knowledge of Mashiach is another thing going on. They're related, but you said if one person really believes, then it's coming. So what are all these little acts? It's like the large circle and
it's
the
a-
smaller
it's-
circle.
The other acts seemed like personal missions, like the Rebbe's personal mission was
The
to
other acts are
bring people
confidence.
closer
They're
to
not.
Judaism.
They're not even faith. So they need their little circles of faith. But the point is that, again, it's like saying that these are completely two different dimensions of reality. That the resurrection of the dead is like a natural progression. It progresses. We progress there along with some historical direction. Mashiach is above time and space. It's like all the great circle all the time is above time and space.
So
It's
we need to wake up
seeing
every day with a renewed wanting of Mashiach, a renewed belief in Mashiach,
Okay.
every day.
and it's now. It can be
Yeah.
right now. I don't need to do something to get there. There's nothing that needs to be done.
And maybe there's a lot of people who do believe, who do live like that their life is good.
I used to have a theory that really the world is like a massive online game. And different people are at different levels. They seem to be, they could be in the same room playing together. Like you have this big room with everybody their own screen and their own connection to the game. And each person's at a different level.
Yes.
There are some
That's-
people that
yes,
already they went
yes,
through it.
Exactly.
But that's not what we call Mashiach in the end.
Oh,
Why?
wow.
Because in the end, Mashiach does have to be a collective change.
In
But
the
it's a
end.
collective change in the consciousness, not a collective change in what we do or how we or where we're on history. It's an ahistorical change. It's not related to history.
But, I'm a bit confused there. Remember when you spoke about Avram and you said, like, when this idea of surrender into the void, you spoke about the great circle and you said he went there and he said hen li lo. He didn't he didn't say I have to have kids in the big circle. He said hen li lo in the big circle, and then
Right.
Hashem took him out.
Everything's
But now
good.
you're saying the big circle is very specific. You know what you want. You know what it's going to look like.
No.
You're saying in the big circle, I know Mashiach's coming. I know reality is good. I don't say hen li lo
It's
Hashem
good.
comes or doesn't come.
It's very, everything is good. Dirt in the emperor's gift is good. I don't know.
So
I'm
in the
not
big
saying-
circle, I could say Mashiach or no Mashiach. It's good.
No.
Why not?
It's not Mashiach nor Mashiach.
Right.
Although that would
Everything's good.
explain, although that idea would explain why Chazal say that En ben David ba ela be'esech hadat.
Okay.
That
What's that?
Mashiach doesn't come unless you're not paying attention.
Okay.
So which is it? Am I supposed to want it? Am I supposed to have faith in it? Or am I supposed to not pay attention? Which is it?
It's all good.
It's all good.
It's a parenting technique.
I don't have to pay attention for it to be good. It's just good.
You turn your head, it'll work itself out.
Okay, it's very confusing. Okay, it's good.
Works on the
It's
dog.
good, but it's not specific.
Works on the dog,
It's
why
good,
not?
but it's
In any
not
case,
specific.
okay, it's not specific.
It's good, but it's not specific.
Okay.
Yeah, but in the small circle of faith, I have trust that it will be good. It's very non-specific. Also, it's kind of
No, it's
simple.
very specific.
In the small circle, I say I
Because
don't. No, the
I'm
small
where I
circle-
am.
No, but you said the small circle of faith. I say I don't
Again,
know how it's going to be
I don't
good,
have a picture of how it's going to work out.
so it's not specific.
They both don't give me a picture of how it's going to
Okay.
work out. The difference is that the small circle,
about
I
this.
don't know about what's going to work out. I have no idea. The large circle, the great circle, says this is good. It's not about how it'll change, how it'll be. This as it is good. Confidence certainly wouldn't say that. Again, if you're facing bankruptcy, the confidence doesn't say, "Oh, this is great."
So, like in the
It
big
can't.
circle, I say the shofar didn't blow yet, but this we don't have a base on this, but this is good.
Okay.
Okay. Fine.
And like you said, it might be that itself is the recognition of Mashiach in
Well, wait a
reality.
minute. When we're facing bankruptcy, we're supposed to say this is good.
This is
Not
good.
this too is good, but it's all good.
You can say this too is good.
So that's
Because I had
more-
many other good
so
things
that's
before.
the small circle. That's
No,
more
that's the
Rabbi
great
Akiva.
circle. Because to say this, to point at this, Gamzu,
At
this
time.
also is good, that's the
Oh,
great circle.
And when they're taking you away.
It's also good.
Saving me from something.
Listen, I
No one
saw
here is
this
crazy.
news story about the hurricane in the Bahamas, and this woman is standing in front of her house that's totally destroyed, and she's crying. She says, "You've never been through anything like it. There's nothing like it. Hashem is good." She must have said it 4 times in the news story. Hashem is good as she's standing in front of her house.
So there's Mashiach for
Maybe
you.
she's the one.
Let's bring her here, let's invite her
Well, there
here.
are people that live
But the
with
question was
Mashiach.
if she
Who
said
was
this
it
is
that
good.
Yes.
Mendel Hardacher, he had to leave his house to smell outside. Someone asked him if Mashiach was here. Because he lived with Mashiach.
Okay. So at a personal level, certainly a person can reach this. The question is when is it going to become collective? But again, the idea is that it doesn't disturb progress. Mashiach just changes where you're working, but it doesn't change that you need to work. You continue to work. You continue to have confidence. You continue to move forward.
Do you work in a whole other way because that's your belief? I mean, you don't just say it. Every fiber of your being believes it.
I hope so.
And your
Yeah.
calf would be a different kind of calf.
Right.
It would look differently.
Because you're pushing through, suddenly you're not pushing through rock, you're pushing through limestone. Maybe. And it just becomes easier to.
Spend less time working on
Okay.
physical things, like,
Could you, I mean, there's no angst.
which is already happening. We are already working less than we used to,
Mhm.
or more. Anyway.
Depending on who you are. So,
And what you do with your free time that you can
No, they have vacuum cleaners that work without you even helping them push them around. I mean,
now you
definitely,
can
it's
clean
all
your whole house
changed.
and have whatever, yeah.
I have to tell you that we can't drive anymore. That's clear.
We can't what?
Human beings should no longer be allowed to drive.
That is ending though. That
And it's not ending soon enough, but
Yeah.
it's
Right.
got to happen
It
because
took me
it's not
an
even a
hour.
question of Yeah.
You're saying the time wasted, you're talking about
An
wasted
hour to get
time?
on the bacon, hour to, a half hour to get on, a half
No,
hour
I'm
to
talking
get
about the
off.
danger in
The
it.
danger,
Oh.
People are not focused anymore.
right. It's
They
not,
have
it's
no
not aligned
peripheral
with the
vision.
time.
They
That's
don't know
why
where
I
they
stopped.
are.
I saw that.
It's becoming more and more dangerous to let people drive
And
because they're
walk
not
along
built
the
for it
I couldn't
anymore.
stand the responsibility of maybe hitting somebody.
It's like saying to us, like in a certain sense, what the Baal Shem Tov said, in his generation, you can't move forward spiritually by fasting, because the body's not built for it anymore. You'll die from it. In the same way, you can't move forward today by getting into a car, by driving. So the fact that driverless cars are coming or not coming, that doesn't change the fact that we're already maybe halfway there where we can't drive. Imagine tomorrow people would decide we can't drive.
Maybe that's why they're coming.
So no, of course that's why they're coming. I'm just saying that there's a certain like
But what's the end of
gap.
that sentence? If someone says.
Imagine that
"Drive,"
tomorrow everybody
Yeah.
would willingly give up their license. So what would happen? How long would it take for driverless cars to take over?
No, correct,
6
much
months.
faster, yeah, oh yeah.
6 months we'd be done. Because nobody could get along. They'd be pushing, and there'd be no crazy drivers on the street. So the driverless cars could be much more.
Are they operating anywhere yet?
They operate.
Well, they're testing all of them.
No. There's many
Small
places that they actually work. But the point is that you've always got this danger with people being most of the massive drivers on the street. But if people would say, that's it, so suddenly reality would change very, very quickly. So here's the same type of thing, that if our consciousness would tell us, that's it, we can't take reality having negative in it anymore. We just can't. That's it. So reality would quickly show itself to be exactly what it is.
Wow.
It's really good at its core.
So like ideally, ideally if we could live in the great circle of faith, that would be amazing. But there are times we just need small circles of faith. But
In
really
chapter,
we should try and
right,
stay in
in
the
chapter 8, we'll see the connection between the great circle and how you actually bring it down using the kav. We'll see a different use for the line. The line also has another use.
Like some kind
Because
of
we said that
sport
really it's
equipment?
really the point is, up until now here in this chapter we've been describing it, that the line is like disconnected from the great circle. It's like the line is the story of your life, the great circle is in the background.
Right.
But really
It's the essence.
it's like saying that the skull would be somehow separated from the spinal column. That's not a human being. Even though there's a gap.
You said there was a gap.
There's
There's
That's
a little
where
bit of a
real
gap,
faith, that's
right.
our leap.
Right. That's the first leap of faith that you have to make. So even there's a little bit of a gap, there's a strong connection between the two. Because really the purpose of the line is to bring the skull down. It's to bring what's inside the skull down into the rest of the body. Because that's what the spinal column does. It takes the directions from the skull, from the brain inside the skull, and it gives it to the brain inside the organs, inside the body.
To bring Hashem
Okay.
into this world.
Okay? So in that sense, you bring the goodness down. But it's not the goodness itself as much as consciousness of the goodness. That all my bones say, Hashem, who is like you. That's what we say in Shacharis and on Shabbos. Kol atzmotai tomarna Hashem mi kamocha. If all my bones are like extensions of my skull. My skull is also, it's called a bone that has a brain inside, has a moach inside. But how do you say marrow in Hebrew?
Etzem?
No, etzem is the bone. How do you say
No.
marrow?
Isn't it the Etzem
Moach,
Moach. It's called moach.
Right.
Marrow, which is inside every bone in Hebrew, is the same word as brain. Marrow and brain are the same word in Hebrew. So you're bringing it. Okay. So you're bringing it into every fiber of your being. This consciousness, meaning that everything I do with my hands, I do something different than I do with my head. With my head, I have consciousness. With my hands, I don't exactly just have consciousness. I also do something. So that's the extension already of the line of doing something. But the extension of the line has to be such that it's receiving from the brain the right consciousness, that everything is good, everything I'm doing is good. I'm working with good, I'm making more good.
It's like the face you
And so-
show to the world.
Yeah, and it's the face that the world will show you.
Do the small circles help you get to the great circle, or they're not connected?
Yeah, we said that there's a.
Saying if I work on carving my small circles, like carving my small faith, will it help propel me to the great faith, or they're really not? They're two different exercises.
So one is dependent on the other.
Should
You
mirror
can't
it.
really have it. You can't really have these small circles unless you have the
Yeah,
great
well, but I have by
circles.
default. But I'm saying, let's say I.
It's not by
ideally
default. That's
we-
what I said. It's not by default.
No, I'm saying it's there, the big circle, right? The fact that I'm alive.
It's there. It's like Mashiach is always there.
Right.
But for you to realize,
That's what
if
I'm
you
saying.
become conscious of it, that's something else.
Right, so for me to become conscious, to live like Nachum, so to speak, to live miraculously,
Mm-hmm.
will my small circle exercise help me get there, or not really? They're two different.
So what we'll see is that the line itself is what helps you bring that
Mhm.
down.
Mhm.
But that's in chapter 8. We have a little bit to go. The next thing that we're going to see is that the line by itself is very fragile. Line is always a fragile state. It can be easily broken. But the circle is not broken. It's very hard to break, if it can be broken at all. So that we'll see, God willing, next time.
You have to go.
Hmm?
You have to go.
It's broken, it gets, because someone
Shatters
breaks
very
it.
easily.
And then you have to rebuild it?
Yeah, you build a new one.
That's gonna be an interesting